Hello everyone! The fate of the old gods is one of those topics that keeps popping up. And with good reason, because with every bit of information that we get, there is more information that says the opposite. Harbingers, void whispers, the king of diamonds been made upon. Who can you trust? Not me, that's for sure, but let's sit down and get at what we have. As with all lore, it is flexible, and as you'll find out, it has changed over time, but let's see how far we can go.
There are greater battles yet to fight.
To be clear at the start, when talking about the old gods being dead, I'm talking specifically about the world of Azeroth being cleansed of its old god infection. The old gods are dead, defeated, purified, cleansed, sent packing, all that good stuff. Presumably death is not like what we would imagine it when dealing with the old gods. Most likely they did something like the demons did, to which they go back to the realm and they die, the domain of the void and the void lords. We're talking about eldritch void creatures here, in the sense of cleansing the planets in ways that the titans were never able to do. First question, how many old gods crashed into Azeroth? The Warcraft Chronicles has defined the number of old gods on Azeroth at 4, Kafun, Yogg-Saron, Yasharaj, and N'Zoth. That number has been fluid, as there's an in-game book called The Old Gods and the Ordering of Azeroth that talks about how the Titans imprisoned 5 evil gods beneath the surface of the worlds. This information originally comes from the Warcraft 3 manual and is swapped between 4 and 5. This book has recently come back with annotations, which had some take it that Blizzard is wanted to go back to 5 old gods instead of 4. Alternatively, the point was more about the annotations regarding the truth of Azeroth's ordering, what the Titans really were doing, and not the book itself. To add to the confusion, we could discuss on whether or not Yasharaj was imprisoned, considering it was ripped out and only its heart remained. If not, then there is the potential of 2 unnamed, unknown old gods. But then, we also have the War of the Ancients trilogy, in which it says that there are 3 gods. The 3 had been cast down into eternal imprisonment, the place of their confinement hidden from all their powers, bound until the end of time. Right at the start, we're already traveling into the fog of confusion, uncertain of how many old gods there were, let alone if they're gone or not. When G'huun was data mined, a lot of speculation rose up whether or not this was going to be that unmentioned 5th old god. But then they've been very specific about this being an artificially created old god, not one of the originals. If they wanted to add a 5th old god to the list, this would have been a very easy opportunity.
G'huun gonna claim ya all!
Then let's talk about the 4, shall we? Number 1, Yasharaj, which is today's reason as to why the Titans could not just get rid of the old gods without destroying that spirit inside. Due to their colossal forms, Agramar feared the Pantheon would do irreparable damage, or even kill the world's soul. Instead, he proposed creating mighty constructs to act as the Pantheon's hands and prosecute their will against the Black Empire. He would later be proven right, when taking on Yasharaj proved too much for their forces, and Aman'Sul intervened directly. Ripping out the old god caused massive damage, an eternal wound from which volatile arcane energies, the lifeblood of the nascent titan, it erupted and roiled out across the worlds. Not a curse or a prophecy about being unable to remove the old gods. Rather, it's about their tendrils being so deep into the world that ripping them out, it would do too much damage to the spirit inside. Other options, like perhaps laser surgery, could have been an option. More on that later. So their fears were confirmed, and after that, imprisonment was the way to go. With her wounds being patched up, we knew it as the Well of Eternity. As they ripped out Yasharaj, bits and pieces of its form fell back onto the world. In the land that we call Pandaria, its influence is seen through the Shah, and its heart was locked away beneath the lands. Under its influence, the Ahn'Qiraj evolved into the Mantids, and while Yasharaj is described as dead, its influence still carried on, eventually being fully absorbed by War Chief Garrosh Hellscream, to which we expelled it. I think that this one is easier accepted as being truly dead and gone, as it's been fully ripped out of the world and then absorbed.
You will rest in Ny'alotha.
Number 2, Kafun in Silithus, who took over Ahn'Qiraj. The Ahn'Qiraj, under its influence, evolved into the Qiraji. The War of the Shifting Sands was fought to keep the threat contained, but the Scarab Wall was brought down during Classic, and Heroes of Azeroth went toe-to-toe, or, well, eye-to-eye with Kafun. With the Horde occupying the Qiraji army above, the Alliance soldiers descended into the maw of madness. The whispers of Kafun slivered into their minds, seeking to turn them against one another, and yet they succeeded. Through blade, shield, and magic, an old god was defeated. Few mortals could grasp the sheer magnitude of the victory inside Ahn'Qiraj. Even the dragon aspects, who had lived for so long, did not truly understand how dangerous it had been to challenge K'Fun. The triumph of Azeroth's defenders was a warning to the remaining old gods. When mortals joined forces, they were strong enough to overcome them. In the Warcraft comics, we would see a storyline play out in which Cho'Gall serves the dead husk of K'Fun, trying to bring him back to life. While the corpse, it clearly had activity going. That story has been retconned with the Chronicles. Now Cho'Gall's role has been weakening the chains of K'Fun before we fought it, and then set out to serve the other old gods while filling up the ranks of the Twilight Hammer. This one is very difficult to believe that we actually killed K'Fun in this moment. The idea was more in the direction of pushing whatever thing that K'Fun had been able to manifest, a teeny tiny portion of its power that was able to get out of its prison, while the real powerhouse was still locked away. After all, what did we do different compared to the Titanforged that fought in the war against the Black Empire? If our battle here was able to vanquish K'Fun truly, then what stopped the Titanforge from doing so as well?
You are already dead.
Number 3. Yogg-Saron in the Storm Peaks of Northrend, who took over Ulduar. The Ahn'Qiraj, under its influence, evolved into Nerubians. When the invaders finally reached the prison chamber of Yogg-Saron, the old god tore at their minds with visions of madness, betrayal, and suffering. Several of the heroes were lost to insanity, and the old god turned them against their former allies. But just as when they had faced K'Fun, the mortals of Azeroth prevailed. Yogg-Saron was defeated, and its control over Ulduar vanished.
The end of days is finally upon you, and all who inhabit this miserable little seedling.
Back in the day, it was also the idea of pushing whatever manifestation the old gods were able to leak out of the prison back into it. No way could we truly take care of the old gods, right? Not even the Titans have been able to do so. Similar questions with K'Fun. What exactly did we do different than what the Titanforged could have done? Serenite is the crystallized blood of Yogg-Saron, found all across Northrend, indicating how big the full entity would really be, the size of Northrend, or perhaps even bigger. And yet, we've had interviews in which they said that the old god was dead, and then they wanted us to consider what being dead actually means for an old god. And yet, we've had a Legion pre-event in which Yogg-Saron's influence was still haunting the halls of Ulduar. And yet, we've been told that Azeroth has been cleansed of its old god's infection. And yet, exploring Azeroth Northrend says that Yogg-Saron is still imprisoned within Ulduar. And yet, last BlizzCon, they said that the old gods are dead, and their blood is all that remains. No wonder that the fate of the old gods is such a debated topic. The final one, number 4, N'Zoth. He managed to do what all the others wanted to do, which is break out of its prison. But he required our help and a fair bit of manipulation. Xal'atath, Blade of the Black Empire, was an artifact used by Shadow Priest in Legion, rediscovered in battle for Azeroth, and the heroes that we are, we helped Milady with getting herself a new body and be liberated from the blade. In exchange, she handed us over to N'Zoth, who made it clear that the blade had to stay behind.
Honor our bargain. Free me to find my own fate.
Go, but the blade must remain to serve my will.
A fair exchange.
The blade's purpose was to guide us into the right spot to liberate him from his prison. Horde players brought it back to the war chief Sylvanas. Through it, Sylvanas and Azshara entered an allegiance. Azshara would take out a bunch of Sylvanas' enemies. In exchange, she would get the blade and be able to strike at N'Zoth, as she wasn't willingly serving him. N'Zoth revealed that he knew about the allegiance, that he actually planned on this. All went according to plan. The Queen of the Naga ready to strike the old god down. All she needed was us and our Heart of Azeroth to release his titanic bonds.
You see the truth now, don't you, heroes? Every move you've made has been according to my will. That lumbering dwarf believed you could save Azeroth by empowering your shiny little heart. The gift of a sleeping titan. Yes, a titan's heart was exactly what was needed. Not to heal the world, but to shatter the prison of a god. Such delicious irony. The Diamond King has been made a pawn. The ritual nears completion. The Black Empire rises, and the world awaits its true queen.
There will be no coronation this day.
We provided it, guided along by her schemes. Except we were too much for her to handle, and while Ahn'Qiraj was defeated, N'Zoth was also released. Not quite done with his disobedient queen, Ahn'Qiraj is pulled away to enjoy a fair bit of torment for her betrayal within Ny'alotha. For the first time since the defeat of the Black Empire, an old god was released. All eyes would be opened. What madness would spread across the surface of Azeroth if Deathwing caused such carnage and destruction with a whole expansion with the Cataclysm. Imagine what N'Zoth is gonna do, the one who signed his paychecks. Turns out that he was going to corrupt 2 whole zones that saw a little bit of void here and there before he was defeated. We ventured into Ny'alotha, which is a bit of a vague realm. It's a realm inhabited by the Old Gods and their minions, where N'Zoth had this vision of a future in which the Old Gods are ascended. The Black Empire reclaims dominance. He would win, and he was trying to push that nightmare into reality. Instead, Azeroth's heroes faced the madness, took out the threats before it could push further in. Along the way, they ran into Ahn'Qiraj again, being tormented by Dark Inquisitor Xanesh, who prides herself on slowly carving away the sanity from those in her charge, until all that remains is unwavering devotion to N'Zoth. Great skills to have, but perhaps next time she should work on patting down her prisoners, as for some reason, Ahn'Qiraj was allowed to keep the blade of the Black Empire. Convenient for us, as she handed it over, to which we then just let her walk away, for some reason, despite nearly murdering us all earlier. Rephion then uses the blade to slice through the carapace, allowing us to confront N'Zoth. Nearly we fall to the whispers, but our connection to Azeroth, the heart of Azeroth full of Azerites, the cloak that we made with Rephion and Magni's support, all of it allows us to laser beam N'Zoth, and by extension bring down Ny'alotha, bring down the entire Black Empire.
Today, at long last, she's free from the grasp of the old gods. Her song rings clear and strong throughout this chamber.
Her song rings true. Or does it? What does Magni really know? The King of Diamonds is just a pawn after all. Surely they wouldn't take care of N'Zoth in just one single patch, right? And what about K'Vuun and Yogg-Saron? Did laser beaming N'Zoth cause like a cascading effect that took him out as well? Or were they always gone? And if that's the case, how? We didn't do anything special when fighting those two. Surely they wouldn't all of a sudden just get rid of all the old gods, right? This is terrible. There must be some other explanation. And that is where the speculation comes from that N'Zoth hasn't really been defeated. He gained knowledge of the future by us traveling through time. And so he was able to prepare for this moment, put all the steps in motion to place his essence into the blade. My counterpoints would be that 1. The blade seemingly disappears during the cutscene, destroyed as Rephion has used it, so what blade could N'Zoth have put himself in? And 2, if N'Zoth had knowledge on the future, why wasn't he able to plan himself victorious? Why would he plan his release from prison only to imprison himself again? And the answer would be that this is the only path forward. There was no other possible option along the way, which I find hard to believe as he had so many years of picking options, as well as he's an old god. Since when do they deal with one singular truth?
I know you. What you were. What you will yet be.
Now looking at what we have so far, it is clear to see that the fate of the old gods, the number of the old gods, it's all over the place. Not to mention that you're dealing with whispers, corruption, who can you trust when they attack your senses? Now say that the old gods are still there though. What exactly would the story gain? It's undeniable that N'Zoth and the old gods have fallen to the poor planning and storytelling that we've seen play out over the last few expansions. An old god entirely released from his prison, and its delivery left such little impact. No massive changes whatsoever, and before you know it, N'Zoth is already dealt with. Clear the board as we got other stories to focus on. It's shit that they did it, but going back on it, it devalues it even more, in the sense that they can't even stick with the story told. Okay, the old gods are still there. They managed to deceive you, have fun with the Black Empire. how do you fit that into the story told so far? For example, Magni telling us that she's cleansed and healed and getting stronger, it had effects on the story of Dragonflight.
The world is healing.
And so the Isles woke up with all the story that followed. On top of that, if we do want to deal with the Black Empire and the story in which the old gods have an effect, we can get there while still keeping the old story intact. You can use the defeat of the old gods not to go and somehow they returned. Instead, what they seem to be doing is integrating their defeat into something bigger and better. That, however, does take us into the War Within Alpha story time, so you're up to speed on the story and the fate of the old gods so far, and the question whether or not they're still here. If you don't want any spoilers, then please turn off the video right now. At the War Within presentation, we were told,
the old gods are dead.
I used a clip of this of just Theron Gregory saying that the old gods are dead, to which I got this comment. Lobo, could you remember to include the full Theron Gregory quote from the BlizzCon clip used here in the future, since it wasn't him saying objectively a truth. He specifically prefaced it by saying, Xal'atath's message is clear, which gives it an entirely different context. Very frequently, she is not truthful with people she wants to use.
A darkness has been gathering, even as the heroes adventured on the Dragon Isles, and in the War Within, the mysterious harbinger that Ahn'Qiraj spoke of will reveal themselves. Xal'atath has returned. Freed long ago from the black blade that once bound her, she is now the harbinger of a new era of the Void's dark machinations. And her message is clear. The Black Empire has fallen. The old gods are dead. And their ancient blood runs deep within the cracks of the world. We, the heroes of Azeroth, destroyed them. The forces of the Horde and the Alliance have proven time and again they are among the most powerful armies that have ever stood. The Harbinger has watched this. She is patient. And while the Black Empire failed, Xal'atath now seeks to set in motion the rise of a new dark legacy. One that knows our true strength and will seek to test it against a new threat of terrible power, the Nerubians of Ahn'Qiraj.
And it's interesting that you could listen to this and interpret it as Xal'atath's message. It's Xal'atath telling us that the Black Empire has fallen, the old gods are dead, and their ancient blood runs deep within the cracks of the world. Xal'atath loves to lie and manipulate. Who's to say that she is telling the truth? Even going by the idea that this is Xal'atath's message, then it still doesn't have to be a lie, considering that she also says their blood runs deep within the cracks of the world, and we know that this is truth, this is happening, we know that this is being gathered. How would there be blood if the old gods are still there? Why lie about their fates? Wouldn't it make more sense if they are actually gone, and we're picking up the blood and the units left behind? That's by going with the idea of the old gods are dead being her message. But the way that I heard it in the presentation, that was that the message was about her coming to set in motion the rise of a new dark legacy, one that knows her true strength. After all, how can we describe this as a new era of the Void's dark machinations, when it's just the old gods as we know them before? But I did love the comments and how you can interpret the presentation, the message in different ways. If that doesn't scream old gods and void to you, I don't know what will. Hardy Chicken recently found a mural in Khaz-Algar showing units of the void. A big old void being in the background and a crystal in the sky. Is this what Xal'atath used to look like? Is this an unnamed old god? Is this depicting N'Zoth, making use of Sargeras' stab in the world and darkening the crystal in Hollowfall? Is this what the world used to be like? So many interpretations. And then speaking of Hollowfall, they suggest that the Arathi Empire is living on a previously undiscovered piece of land, beyond impassable storms, another side of Azeroth perhaps. If there is another side to the planet, do we really think the old gods all crashed into just one side of it? Or did the Titans imprison them all into one side while keeping the other side clean? Are there more old gods waiting beyond the storms? Who knows? Now, looking at the War Within so far, it seems like they're using the story that came before as building blocks for something new. Xal'atath is keenly aware of our capabilities. She saw how Khadgar from Dalaran led the charge against the Legion and managed to secure victory for Azeroth. She has seen heroes work together to venture into Ny'alotha itself and laser beam an old god. She is incredibly aware at our strengths and weaknesses, and she's not arrogant enough to believe that she is unstoppable, and so she's been throwing a whole bunch of problems at us to deal with, while at the same time giving off the massive vibe that she's working on bigger things in the background. It's clear that they dropped the ball when it comes to the old god story, but they could bounce back. Imagine if Xal'atath, who has been confirmed not to be an old god herself, imagine if she's able to plunge the world of Azeroth in complete darkness at the end of War Within. Imagine if the expansion Midnight is the one where Azeroth finds herself completely covered by the void again, as it was when the Titans found her. How could we possibly fight our way through such a thing as unspeakable horrors crawl across the surface? They could do the Black Empire Plus and make the old gods look like amateurs. Imagine if we could see like K'Thun, Yogg-Saron, and Yogg-Saron if they returned, right? But they were just the pre-event. They were just like, oh yeah, the old gods are back, but by the way, look at what Xal'atath, what else she's managed to do. This is always the best time, like when you can just let your imagination run wild and be like, oh, this is what they could do with Azeroth, and this is what they could do with Azeroth. I can't wait to see it. We've also spoken about combining the different parts into an uber god, or like Xal'atath trying to reforge a new body like how she was before. Dimensions the old devouring has been mentioned. It's safe to say there will be plenty of void thrown at us. And with that, I think I'm going to be wrapping up this video. So, thank you very much for watching, everyone. By all means, let me know what you think in the comments down below. And until next time, see ya!